Gather round, boys and girls, and let Grandpa Frecky tell you why he should never commit to long-term video projects again. Remember literally 7 months ago when I said I was going to make 4 videos on different Call of Duty ports? Boy, was that a mistake. The problem with committing to long-term projects like that, when you're me, is that I have waves of being interested in certain subjects. At the time, me and a friend played some Call of Duty together, so I got back into the series a bit. That lasted about 2 months, and now I honestly couldn't give a shit. As of writing this script, I'm in a bit of a fallout phase, but God knows if that will even last till I'm editing this. But let it be said that I am a man of his word. I said I was going to make a 4-part video series on Call of Duty, and god damn it, I'm gonna make it happen, even if I get 360 no-scoped by boredom. Or, you know, some other kind of less lame joke I could have made there. At the very least, I will have made it faster than the 3-year-long Castlevania series I did, which was also 4 videos long. Wow, I'm really bad at long-term commitments, aren't I? Bet my girlfriend is very happy to hear that. Welcome to Port Patrol, the show where I look at weird, interesting, or knockoff ports of video games, and today we're taking a look at Call of Duty Black Ops Zombies. But first, let's get a bit of history out of the way. Obviously, I don't need to explain what Nazi Zombies is, but what I do feel like I should mention is that there are actually 2 Nazi zombie games made for mobile. Well, technically 3, but we'll get onto that in a bit. Call of Duty Zombies was released on iOS devices back in 2009, and that is entirely the reason it's not the main focus of this video, because the only iOS device I own is literally from the year 2000, and there's no way in hell that thing is ever turning on again. An important iPod update! So, as it turns out, my iPod does actually turn on, as long as it's plugged into the wall, and let me tell you, it really feels like I have not turned this thing on since 2009. If something like Nyan Cat doesn't instantly date this device, then perhaps the Pedo Bear background will. Now of course this doesn't change the fact that I can't really get any decent footage from this, so for the next minute or so, please bear with the awful off-screen blurry footage with my big meaty thumbs in the way. I mean, originally I was going to just use still images for this, so I suppose it's slightly better than that. Just bear with. The decent footage will come after this bit. There's only 2 things you need to know though. One is that it was a pretty alright, no-nonsense port of Nazi Zombies from World at War, and 2 is that it tried really hard to get your money. Originally the game cost $10. Then DLC packs for Verrückt and Shi No Numa came out for $5 each. Then they released Call of Duty Zombies 2, which was literally the exact same game, but with Shi No Numa instead of Nackte Untoten, which saved you money if you wanted to play Shi No Numa, and literally nothing else. Then they completely ignored that the second one existed, went back to the first one, added Der Rise as a free update, and then released the other 2 maps completely for free, and offered no refunds for those who had previously spent $10 on them. It was a bit of a mess, you might say, but it was fun enough to get a sequel 2 years later in the form of Call of Duty Black Ops Zombies, which thankfully released on Android, which means I can actually talk about it. You could probably tell that by the way I am. Just like the original Call of Duty Zombies, Black Ops Zombies aims to port the complete Zombies game mode to mobile phone. And for the most part, it does a pretty good job of it. It's literally just Black Ops Zombies, but with touchscreen controls. It's got the maps, it's got the guns, it's got the music Easter eggs, it's got George Romero. In fact, you could even go as far to say that the only thing it's missing is actually a quite sizable portion of the original game. Because it is. Sadly, unlike the first mobile game, you don't get access to all the maps here. It's missing 5, Shangri-La and Moon, which, while that does still leave a decent amount of content left in the game, it would have been nice to see it all here. And I suppose if they had to pick 3 maps to cut out, let's face it, those 3 are definitely the best choice. Thankfully, the maps that are here largely made the transition unscathed. Kino der Toten still has the annoying Nova zombies, Ascension still has its shit-eating space monkeys, although they do look, like, amazingly awful. And Call of the Dead still has the same fog mechanic, though I can't help but feel it would work better in a game where the draw distance wasn't already piss poor to begin with. Simply put, if you like zombies, then there's a good chance you'll like this version of it too. Although the idea of playing a first-person shooter like Call of Duty on a touchscreen sounds awful, I guarantee it's at least 20% less awful than you're thinking it will be. The controls are laid out well enough, so I can't say they were a massive detriment to the game, though one thing you probably have noticed is that it's quite stuttery. Partially I think it's to do with age. It's a 7-year-old app now, so I don't think it has the best compatibility with modern devices, but you grow accustomed to it, and thankfully the generous auto-aim does a good enough job of helping you out, so you don't need to be overly precise. I would imagine the iOS version probably fares better in this regard. As usual when it comes to ports like this, my main issue doesn't really stem from the port itself, but the source material and how they've chosen to adapt it. COD Zombies, at its core, I feel is about endurance. It's about seeing how long you can withhold against an endless onslaught of enemies, and eventually it becomes a game of overcoming your own attention span. Typically when I play zombies, a lot of the time the deaths are purely my fault. It's not that I get outsmarted or overwhelmed, but it's more I become complacent in what I've been doing, and end up making a mistake based on that. Like being too cocky when walking backwards and getting trapped in a corner, or overestimating my ability to run through a pack of zombies without getting hit. It's a war of attrition, both on your character in game and yourself in real life, which is partly why Zombies is so fun. Getting those high scores is satisfying, and the fact you have to do it all in one sitting makes it feel like that much more of an achievement. Now obviously you can't just port COD Zombies to mobile with no quality of life improvements. Notably for this game, zombies have longer pauses between attacks to make up for the fact you're going to be slower when using a touchscreen, and you can save your progress and pick up from where you left off. Now these additions are very welcome, but when has that ever stopped me from endlessly complaining? These changes make the game ridiculously easy. Without the added challenge of having to play it all in one sitting, it means you rarely ever make any mistakes, and let's be honest, once you get the thunder gun you're pretty much set for the entire game. After a while I tried everything I could to make the game end naturally, because although I didn't want to keep playing, I also didn't just want to give up. I forced myself to pick up random weapons from the box, but I still kept going. I even tried playing some rounds one-handed, but it was still no problem. I ended up getting to round 115, and realising that there was no way the game was gonna end anytime soon, I just gave up in the end. Needless to say, 115 rounds of one map can get a bit repetitive, and annoyingly you can only have one save file at a time. So I would definitely, highly, absolutely recommend playing this game on hard, unless you like doing the exact same thing forever with no end in sight. Personally, I think my favourite part of the game isn't even directly related to the main Zombies mode, but the bonus Dead Ops Arcade. Because in all honesty, it's the mode that by far works the best for touchscreen controls. It's simple, it's fast, it runs a lot better than the main game, and it's actually hard so it doesn't last forever. It is genuinely the best part of the entire game. The only thing I can say I dislike about it is the fact that the power-up buttons move depending on where you last left your thumb, so it's really easy to accidentally set off a nuke when you didn't mean to, for fuck's sake. I would say the weakest part of the game for me was Call of the Dead. I mean, sure, it's a complex map concept to get across to mobile, which is probably why they never attempted something like Moon. But there's trying, and then there's not. The view distance is so piss poor already that pulling it in further for the foggy rounds just makes it unbearable. Couple this with the liberal use of the term director's cut, which apparently now means the same thing but with less effort put in, because you don't even get to play as Machete or Buffy, and it's not bad. Nothing about this game is bad, but it's definitely the low point for me. Kino de Toten is probably the best map, but that's probably me being biased because it's my favourite map full stop regardless of what game it's in. And Ascension is also pretty good, though the monkeys still look incredibly awful. What is there to say about Black Ops Zombies that I haven't already said? For $7, there are certainly worse things you could spend your money on. Like my Patreon. Link in the description. Though it would have been nice to see at least one more map like 5 make the cut, the content here is solid and enjoyable enough that I would recommend it to people looking for a fun app to mess around with in quick bursts. Just for the love of God, play it on hard mode. And hey, if you can wrangle 3 friends together, you can even play it co-op. Though at that point, I don't know why you wouldn't just play the real Nazi zombies.